I, like you, have a teenager back facing the stresses of school. New demands on their time, homework deadlines, as well as the new challenges of the uncertain world that we now live in. Compared to us as adults and parents, teenagers have less protection against stress because their brain is still developing and responds differently to stressful situations. And too much stress for them can have really detrimental effects on their learning and education at school. So I want to share some practical strategies so you can support them during those stressful times during their adolescent life. Welcome to episode 6 of Better Brain, Better You, where we're trying to help you cultivate a healthy brain and build better mental well-being at every stage of life, from troubled teens to older adults. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Webb. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune in. It's great to have you here, however you consume your podcasts, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, or if you're watching on YouTube. Today's episode is about the toxic effects that stress can have on your teenager's brain and their ability to learn at school, along with some stress-busting strategies to support them during heightened periods of stress. I hope this episode will help you to identify signs of stress in your teenager and develop some strategies together to help them manage stressful situations. So with that in mind, if you want to become more aware of your teenager's approach to life to help and support them through these uncertain times, especially being back at school, I want to give you a free mini course that we have designed called the Teenage Brain. You can sign up for the Teenage Brain mini course at ologyonlinecourses.com/teenage brain sales page. That's ologyonlinecourses.com/teenage brain sales page. It's completely free, so please do go and take this mini course to increase your awareness and understanding of your teenagers' habits and behaviours, including what causes them to get stressed. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll pin the link in the comments below. Okay, so what can make adolescence so difficult is much of a teenager's reaction to the world around them is driven by their emotions, not reason or rational thought. They might often describe their teenage life like a drama that is either awful or amazing, depending on their current circumstances. The emotional lives of all human beings is closely tied to the working of the amygdala, an ancient brain structure from which most of our primal feelings and reactions arise: fear, anger, hate, panic, grief. When we consider our emotions, the main difference between adults and adolescents is there's much less activity in a teenager's frontal lobes here, the thinking and rational part of the brain, making it harder for them to control their emotions, especially in stressful situations. Compared with adults, teenagers are less protected against stress because of the way their brain responds to stressful situations. A hormone called THP, which usually behaves like a tranquilizer, calming brain activity to help people cope with stress, has the opposite effect on teenagers. This makes them feel more anxious in stressful situations. Teenagers also do not have full access yet to the conscious, rational frontal part of their brain, because it's not yet connected up to the rest of their brain. So other more primitive areas of the brain can get a little out of control. Faced with a stressful situation, their amygdala is the first to respond and triggers the release of a stress hormone like adrenaline. This puts their body in a position to respond to danger. This fight, flight, or freeze response includes a faster heart and breathing rate, increased blood flow to muscles, cold or clammy hands, upset stomach, and a sense of dread. And this is a genetically programmed response to threat that during evolution, humans have used to survive dangerous and life-threatening situations. But compared to when our primitive ancestors roamed the earth, threats to our survival are far less common in the modern world. So adolescents are prone to responding to situations of stress with much more extreme survival emotions than adults, who can rely on their rational frontal lobes to control their anger and fear. Another brain chemical called cortisol sometimes called the stress hormone, also contributes to a teenager's emotional stress response. During adolescence, and especially in girls, cortisol levels are higher than they are in adults. Negative emotions like stress, worry, anxiety, anger are all caused by elevated levels of cortisol. Loneliness is too, and this is why being alone during the teenage years is associated with increased anxiety and stress. Heightened emotions go hand in hand with stress, and the stressful situations for teenagers are everywhere, from speaking in front of a class to peer rejection and bullying. And the effect of stressful experiences and emotional trauma on teenagers can have serious consequences for their emotional health and mental health later in life. So stress can also have damaging effects on a teenager's learning and education at school. A little pressure can be motivating, but too much stress can massively interfere with a teenager's ability to learn and commit new information to memory. We've all seen a nervous child in the midst of a school performance freeze and completely unable to drag the words from the depths of their memory. But this freezing of memory is actually real. The hippocampus, a brain structure which is critical for learning and memory, basically stops functioning during highly stressful situations. A surge of cortisol during a stress response is toxic for the structure and the function of the hippocampus. Learning is impaired because neurons in the hippocampus can't make new connections with other neurons. Memory is impaired because old connections between neurons are eliminated by the stress response. So we should try to be mindful of what our teenagers consider stressful and realize this actually may be different to what we find stressful. School, parents, and teachers can themselves be major sources of stress during adolescence. And when teens are stressed, their thinking becomes less flexible. And after a period of stress, the brain of adults bounce back within about 10 days, whereas it can take up to about 3 weeks for adolescent brains to bounce back after a period of intense stress. So the effects of stress on the teenage brain are long-lasting, but also in some cases can actually be irreversible. So we should therefore try and pause and consider what are the stresses in our teenager's life and what can we do to support them. So what are the signs that your teenage child might actually be stressed? Well, signs of stress can show up in many different ways, but irritability and anger is one prominent sign. Teenagers don't always have the words to describe how they are feeling, and sometimes tensions bubble over into a bad mood. Stressed out teenagers might also be more short-tempered or more argumentative than normal. Changes in behaviour is another sign. A once active teenager now doesn't want to leave the house, for example. And sudden changes in behaviour or habits can also be a sign that stress levels are really high. Trouble sleeping is also a sign. A teen might complain of feeling tired all the time, sleep more than usual, or have trouble falling asleep at night. Neglecting responsibilities would also be another. If an adolescent suddenly drops the ball on homework, forgets obligations, or starts procrastinating more than usual, stress might be a factor. So changes to eating habits also, eating too much or too little, can both be reactions to stress. And getting sick more often can also be a sign, because stress often shows up as physical symptoms. Teenagers who feel stressed often report headaches or stomach aches and might make more frequent trips to the school's nurse's office. Okay, so what are some practical strategies for supporting your teenager during stressful times? Well, first up would be help your teenager learn how to notice the early signs of stress for them. Have conversations with them about how you can tell when you're getting stressed. For example, help your teenager notice the signs in them before the stress gets too overwhelming. Number 2 would be identify, then tackle the problem. Sometimes when they identify the sources of stress, it can feel overwhelming for them. They may feel unable to address the problem itself. To get past that feeling, divide the problem into smaller pieces and manage one piece at a time. For example, you can make lists and timelines and then identify a strategy to address each part of the problem. Or rehearse and practice situations which cause stress. like practicing presentations in a safe place at home if talking in front of a class makes them anxious. Number 3 would be sleep well. Proper amounts of sleep are really important for stress management because exhausted people cannot solve problems. So whether a lack of sleep comes from poor sleep habits or stress, the brain and the body both benefit from breaking a cycle of sleeplessness. And sleep science has shown that teenagers need about 8 to 10 hours per night. So if your teenager is finding it difficult to sleep because of stress, see if they can engage in some relaxation or distraction strategies. So if you want to know more about those, you could sign up for our Nurturing the Teenage Brain course on specific strategies you can use here with your teenager. This course opens its doors for new students in mid-November, and you can find further details on ologyonlinecourses.com. Number 4 would be exercise regularly. The brain's reaction to stress hormones prepares the body to run, freeze, or fight. They put the mind into a survival mode, which makes it hard to focus, think clearly, and problem solve. And when the body is stressed and doesn't get exercise, it's left feeling as if it needs to run from danger. So exercise literally runs out those stress hormones. It's also tightly linked to better physical health and contributes to mental and emotional well-being as well. Learning to relax would be another strategy. The same brain process that turns on the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze response, can also turn it off. As soon as your teenager decides that a situation is no longer dangerous, changes can occur in our minds and bodies to help us relax and calm down. This relaxation response includes decreased heart and breathing rate and a sense of well-being. Active relaxation strategies can help the mind regain focus and be a first step to problem solving. So teenagers who learn mindfulness experience significantly less mental distress than teenagers who do not. So good nutrition and eating well is another one. Proper nutrition is essential to a healthy body, a clear mind, and managing stress. Talk about your stressful situation. Talk about the stressful situations with a trusted friend or adult. Can help teenagers put things into perspective and find solutions. Make time for fun and quiet in their life as well. Just like adults, teenagers need time to do what brings them joy, whether that's uninterrupted hours to practice music or art, play football, or even some gaming time. Find a healthy balance between favourite activities and free time. Get outside would be another one. Spending time in nature is a really effective way to relieve stress and improve overall well-being. Listen carefully to them and watch for overloading of stress. So when this happens, it can lead to anxiety, withdrawal, aggression, physical illness, or poor coping skills such as drug and alcohol use. You can also, as a parent, model healthy coping. Parents can talk with teenagers about how they've thought about and dealt with their own stressful situations. Learn and model stress management skills. Another one would be promote media literacy. Today's teenagers spend a lot of time online where they can run into questionable content, cyberbullying, or the peer pressures of social media. So parents could help by teaching their children to be savvy digital consumers and by limiting screen time as well. And last up would be combat their negative thinking. I'm terrible at maths, I hate my hair, I'll never make the team. These sort of things. Decrease this negative talk. Challenge negative thoughts with alternative, neutral, or positive thoughts. And children and teenagers can easily fall into the trap of negative thinking. And when children use and teenagers use negative self-talk, though, don't just disagree. Ask them to really think about whether what they're saying is true. Or remind them of times they worked hard and improved. Learning to frame things positively will help them develop resilience to stress. They can then try other strategies which may be more effective the sooner they're able to use them. So by using these and other techniques, teenagers can begin to manage stress, and you can learn more about strategies for supporting your teenager with their stress in our online course. So before we finish, if you want to become more aware of your teenager's approach to life to help and support them through these uncertain times, uncertain times, especially being back at school, I want to give you this free mini course that we have designed called The Teenage Brain. You can sign up for the Teenage Brain mini course at ologyonlinecourses.com/Teenage Brain sales page. That's ologyonlinecourses.com/Teenage Brain sales page. It's completely free, so please do go and take the mini course to increase your awareness and understanding of your teenagers' habits and behaviours, including what causes them to get stressed. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'll pin the link in the comments below. So thanks for taking time to tune in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, and I'll see you in the next episode.